What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. We've got a full barn in the building today. I am one of your normal hosts, Garrett Williams. Joining me tonight, three men that you see on the screen. We've got Kyle Henning on the top right of the screen. How we doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing fine. Been in a rather annoying day of stupidity over and over again, which I'm sure we'll get to plenty of those thoughts and takes today on this episode, so looking forward to it.
Yep. Joining us also, normally, Mr. Arrowhead Tom on the bottom right. How we doing tonight, Tom?
We were all wrong.
Yeah.
And it hurt all the same. I recovering. It's kind of a damper. I next time I will blow harder on the birthday candles, I guess. Yeah. Also, like, just for the record, I feel like if anybody's like if I don't know, Travis or Patrick, if you're listening, like, you messed up our birthday, boys. You should like send us, I don't know, some jerseys or like some gear. Kyle and I should maybe get a suite at Arrowhead. I don't know. Like, come on, man. Think about it. Think about the children.
For real.
Think about your fans, Travis. Think about your fans, Patrick. Come on, guys. So it was our birthday. You couldn't beat the Bills? The Bills? I'm kidding. They're good. No, I mean, I'm doing good. We'll get into this stuff.
That's
We've got
good.
Other people to introduce.
Yeah. That's good. I was glad. Happy birthday, by the way, to Kyle and Tom. Unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest of birthdays, but it is what I'm sure it was great other than that, though.
Yep, everything else was good.
That's good. That's very good. And then, of course, joining us tonight, rejoining of after a bit of a time away. Unfortunately, has to join after the Chiefs loss, which kind of sucks. But of Arrowhead or of Kingdom Recon fame and glory, Mr. Randy Ellenberger. How are we doing tonight, Randy?
I'm doing all right. I am happy and excited to be back, seeing your three smiling, beautiful faces tonight. We're going to talk some football. I got back into some high school coaching this year, so took some time off of all this extra fun stuff to get back into that. But pumped to be back, talking some Chiefs ball with you guys. So
glad to have you here to glad to have you here to try to diagnose this Chiefs season with us, because it's been a wild ride so far. Despite being undefeated up until Sunday, the writing was on the wall. This Chiefs team was a little bit flawed potentially, and everything wasn't really clicking like it should. There have been a lot of injuries this year, just a lot of different things that have been going wrong. But despite all that, we had persevered and got 9 wins in a row, and unfortunately faced a really good Buffalo team at home in Buffalo, and just fell a little short on Sunday. So we're going to talk about it. It's not the end of the world, despite, as Kyle alluded to earlier, it seems like it's the end of the world for some folks, because this is the first Chiefs loss in almost a year. It's been almost a year. It's been 11 months since the Chiefs have actually lost a competitive football game. So can't really be too upset over that kind of streak and that kind of winning success that the Chiefs have had. But
we've had it pretty good.
We've had it pretty good. Yeah. I mean, a couple Super Bowls. It's the past few years. It's really a good time in Chiefs Kingdom, and I think people are very down about a regular season loss in November. So that's very, very interesting. But we're going to get into all of it tonight. Appreciate you guys all watching and tuning in. Before we get into it, I'll just shout out all the socials and whatnot. Follow us at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leave a like and subscribe on YouTube. That really helps us out. That's where we're going to keep on doing a lot of fun content, including those Friday night lives that we've been doing every Friday. So you can always tune in and check that out over there. And of course, Spotify, Apple Music, and everywhere else you get your podcasts at. We will be providing you content, win or lose, rain or shine. We will be here to talk about the Chiefs, and it's a little bit of rain today in Chiefs Kingdom. So
literally.
That's been raining here all day.
That's bright and sunny out here in Arizona. I can't relate, but
the whole middle of the country's been getting peed on for the entirety of the day.
Okay, so where should we start? Anyone have any ideas of where we should start with this loss?
I don't
Sure.
like that last one.
Sure. I'm the
Yeah.
one that called for them to blow them out, and it was based on them doing certain things that they left on the table, and it also involved Buffalo not doing things I didn't think they would be able to do / be allowed to do, and they were. They played more man coverage than they've played all season. They ran Josh Allen on design runs multiple times this game.
Yep.
They didn't really use the tight end much because they don't have any, as we saw throughout most of that game. They didn't have any left. But this defense, that was the worst defensive performance as far as not from a numbers or a statistics or a watching the game standpoint, from a communication, being on the same page, acting as a unit thing we've seen from this team probably since Spags took over. And that was probably Spags' worst defensive called game that I've seen since he took over this defense. So when all those things happen, you don't blow teams out, especially when you leave multiple points on the table, because this was the game this season for the first time, really, that the defense needed the offense to actually pick them up, and they didn't. And it starts with the guy running the offense on the field and the guy running the offense on the sideline. And neither one of them are named Matt Nagy for anybody keeping track at home.
Yeah, the offensive problems are definitely pretty strong and pretty apparent. Tom, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I still don't like Matt Nagy, but I think I agree with Kyle's general sentiment that it's hard to tack this all on.
We do this shit every year. Every year.
Pretty frequent, yeah.
I will just say I have been a consistent hater.
That's fine.
Back since this is not me critiquing anything of material substance. This is just me staying on brand. I want to be very clear. I can't pinpoint and say this is exactly what Matt Nagy is doing wrong. I just think his name's stupid.
Fair. Too short, you know.
So we got him. All right, we got him, boys. That said, I agree with Kyle that this offense, which is normally has been functional, right? The last couple of weeks, it just keeps and it's working backwards because normally you hit the dysfunction early and then you kind of work through it and you have it and now it feels like we're at a completely different place with these levels of dysfunction as we're going. It's like we're almost creating new problems. Now all of a sudden we're having more and more conversations about the offensive line and offensive tackles, and then it's like the tight ends and Travis Kelce is getting kind of quiet again, and wide receivers. Yeah, and so what it feels like, and this is rare for an Andy Reid team, I think, and I do have confidence that they'll ultimately figure it out. What it feels like is they came into this season with a very specific plan, and if you go back to preseason and some of the additions they made, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, they had Rashee Rice coming in. They're coming back, for his second season, and they looked so good that first. I mean, we didn't get to see Hollywood, so Hollywood goes. That's one wheel off, and then Rashee goes, and that's another wheel off, and it's not just about the bodies, but it's about the way that I think they wanted to play, the way that they wanted to attack defenses. They have struggled to come up with a offensive identity this year, and they've still managed to be productive at times, but it felt like, we talked a lot about bringing the long ball back and the deep ball back, and that's just not there now, and they failed to adjust back to, hey, we need to do some more of this chain moving, ball control, and obviously Pacheco being out hurts that too. So let's not acknowledge we didn't leave.
Yeah.
We lost two really good starters, but yeah, the identity hasn't been established. It feels like they want to be two different teams at the same time a little bit on offense. And they just haven't been consistent at either one. And again, I think, and Randy will probably agree in part with me here, just because we're the O-line guys. It starts up front, and when your offensive line is struggling for whatever reason, it doesn't matter how nice the car is. If you got flat tires, you're not going anywhere.
Okay,
So-
real quick, I'm going to ask this question since you're both the offensive line guys, and I'm sure Randy's going to go next here. If you have a struggling offensive line, especially one that's struggling in pass protection, what do you normally do in that case?
But I do one of two things. One, I think you have to obviously give them help. You need to alter your protections, whether that's keeping a tight end in, having a running back to stay to help chip, or you move to a quicker 3-step pass game, get the ball out of your hands if you're going to throw the ball.
I guess I should have clarified. What do you do when you struggle? Not necessarily. They're struggling in pass protection. So what's another option to struggling in pass protection? What's another option for a team to go to besides adjusting things in the passing game?
Well, you have to go back to some fundamentals, like the coaching.
Like running the ball?
Running the ball helps a lot too, and especially
like not giving Kareem Hunt his lowest carry total of the freaking season since you got him.
Really baffled me about this game plan is that, yeah, so Pacheco goes down and you find this new reinvigorated Kareem Hunt sitting on the couch, and he's coming and he's done what I don't even think any of us thought he was like capable
Exceeded
of
expectations
at this point. Yeah, he has exceeded any expectations we had out of Kareem. But in this newfound Chiefs offense, to where we are putting, duct tape and Band-Aids on some positions at the wide receiver area to try to get us through in the passing, and we have really leaned on him, and we have transitioned into more of a, control the clock, run the ball, move the chains, methodical, something that we're not necessarily used to seeing. And I think that has a lot of people kind of shaking their heads, because we're used to the high flying scoring, Pat chucking the ball around and putting up 30. We don't necessarily have all those pieces right now to do it. So we've had to transition into more of a ball control, run the ball type of offense. And that's great when your middle three are probably, the best middle three when it comes to offensive linemen in the NFL. But our tackles are really killing us, not just in the pass protection game, but they're killing us in the run game as well. They're constantly getting beat across their face, allowing penetration that really, if you want to screw up somebody's run game, it's you're playing on the offensive side of the line. Like, penetration kills run plays. So our tackles get beat across their face way more than they should. And that really disrupts a lot of timing, angles. It disrupts everything in the run game. So it literally does boil down to our tackles really pissing the bed all the time, and a lot of it is just sheer fundamentals. Like we talked about this in some chats a few days ago about just looking at some of our guys' stances and their initial steps, whether it's their pass sets or even their run blocking steps, that it's ugly just from a sheer standpoint of fundamentals and technique. Like, it's hard to look at. I mean, I'm sorry, but Juwan Taylor's stance in his pass sets, his initial stance is one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. His feet are pointing in weird directions. His knees are pointing in weird directions. And when he gets out of his stance, he stands straight up out of it. He has no leverage. He has no power. He has no base. And that goes for Wanya and Kingsley on the other side too. Like, their initial steps and stance and technique right now just look bad. And when your technique is bad, it translates into everything else. Like, you're starting from zero and you're going backwards. Like, you're not making any progress. So I'm not sure what Andy Heck is doing with tackles right now, but I don't like it. And that's something we talked about as a group at length here for a while too.
Yeah. And to put that in perspective, as Randy said, it's one of the ugliest things he's ever seen, and he is on this podcast regularly with me. But also we talked about this in the group chat a couple of weeks ago. Juwan Taylor's the way he sets up in a 2-point stance, his legs kind of look like a baby giraffe that just got plopped onto the field. And
like Bambi ice. Like, it's just,
yeah, I mean, it's strange. When we talked about this in the group chat, we talked about, you bring a guy like that in because of his tool, because of his age, and you think maybe we can coach this out of him. And I think that they just haven't been able to coach it out of him. I also think that when you get to Kingsley and Wanya, like, that piece of their game that is missing is that mental development. Kingsley has every physical tool you could want in a left tackle. He's 21 years old. He's he is an actual baby giraffe out there. But we just don't see that consistency. Same thing with Wanya. Wanya, I think, has got a little bit more. He's got more experience, and he's been around some other guys, some other vets, and that's why I almost go. If you think about tackle's a unique position on the offensive line, right? Playing next to Joe Tooney, I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom and stuff to be had there, but he's also preparing to do his job. He's not. It's kind of an awkward position, but hey, yeah, we teach this kid how to play a different position than what you play. I'm sure there's things to teach, but in terms of those drop sets, and that's what we're talking about in pass protection a lot. You don't have a veteran tackle on this team outside of Juwan Taylor, who isn't really good at that. So,
and that's
I wonder.
Crazy. Yeah. Juwan he's a vet. He's been in the league for a while. He has had so don't get me. He has had some success. He is a decent tackle. He's not what we hoped and prayed he would be, but there is almost like an uncoachable aspect to Juwan Taylor, to the fact that he can't fix his stance. He can't even get lined up on the line of scrimmage like you're supposed to on a regular basis.
Still has issues with that.
Done since 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, through high school, through college. Like, your helmet has got to at least break the hip line or the belt line of the center to be lined up appropriately. And he cheats so far back because I don't know if it's a confidence thing with him. Is like he has to get as much of an edge possible to make sure he doesn't screw the pooch on his job. He lines up as far back as possible. He gets the quickest jump on a snap count that I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's still very quick.
He's faster than Lane Johnson, who's notoriously bad at it as well. And I understand, when I coach my tackles, even at the high school level, is that as soon as you hear that first syllable of the last word in the cadence, that's when you jump into your set. But he's jumping even before that. So as offensive linemen, we always try to teach those little things to try to give you an edge, but he's taken it to the 10th degree and it to where it's become a problem. It's become a liability. Like, these are things that are coachable, should be able to be coached out of him. Juwan, this is how you line up. This is how we've done it from day one. Get your ass on the line.
In theory, they're coachable and practice it. And that's why I said I think that there was a hope and a bit of a gamble, and we're seeing now, of course, he'll probably do really well.
Pick your offensive tackle and their flaw. Pick any of the 8 now. Any of the 9. We can sit here and have the same freaking conversations about these tackles over and over and over again. Or we could stop pretending like Andy Heck is some god at this and address the fact that he's had a bajillion attempts and cannot develop a tackle. It has yet to happen. Period.
That seemed to be the case.
Orlando Brown, Kingsley, Lucas Niang, Wanye, Prince Tega Winoga. I can keep going. Andrew Wiley's the best option that they have gotten. The best improvement that you have seen from somebody as a tackle has been Andrew freaking Wiley, and it's because he'd never played the spot before they tried him at it.
And he was bad at it.
Andrew Wiley is probably the least physically gifted out of anybody in that entire group.
Which is the most annoying part of the whole thing.
How's that end up working?
We have guys on the roster that have the tools. They have the physical ability. They have everything that you look for. Like you talk, Kingsley looks the part. Okay, even Wanye.
He was better in college than he is right now from a basic technique standpoint.
And the fact that we elevate, we had Driscoll instead of Kingsley this last game as our swing tackle.
Well, that's because they've executed the young man's confidence publicly, and no one said anything about it.
I think the mental aspect of Kingsley, I think he is swimming. His head is.
Do you blame him?
Different things. And he's been jerked around. Like he's been put in, yanked, started, sat, scratched, whatever. So I mean, there's some developmental things that need to happen with him, just on a mental ability.
Sure. He's 21.
Handle the play, and that has a lot to do with it too. He's a young kid.
Super young. Yeah.
He has all the ability, and
he was a project coming out. He was a development piece coming out. I know everybody thought he was going to be the first-round pick, so now they assume he's the first-round pick. He was actually the second-round pick, and he also should not have. If it was going to look anything like this, if they thought there were going to be any problems like this, they should not have started him or handled the stuff the way they did at the beginning of the year. I've been saying it since week 2.
We have been
It has
saying it.
been a problem.
Yeah,
The
we have
other
been
part,
saying it.
Tom, I'm going to push back on your they don't have an identity and they don't have a game and they don't have this. They do. They have had an identity since Kareem Hunt got there. The second he walked in the door, they said, here's 20 plus carries every single game. They gave him 14 in this game. He was running for 4.3 yards a carry. In games where he averaged 2.5 yards a carry, they still gave him 25 touches. This is a terrible Buffalo Bills run defense, and they didn't run the ball. You also mentioned the deep shots not being there. Oh, they're there. Your Hall of Fame quarterback has missed them multiple times now in multiple weeks, and everybody can talk to me about Xavier Worthy needing to keep his feet in. Great, that's fine. Randy mentioned thinking too much when he was talking about the offensive tackle play. You watch Xavier Worthy drag his foot before he catches the ball because he's thinking, I got to get both feet in, instead of just making the play and then dragging the toe.
That ball was just hanging in the air
Because he's
too damn
thinking.
long.
The other problem is he had half the field open and he threw him into the sideline.
Yeah. No, that's the
You can blame the receiver and the rookie young kid all you want, but the future Hall of Fame quarterback who also told you his freaking self that he did it wrong is okay to get blamed sometimes, folks. It's okay.
Yeah, especially when you have a situation where it's like Xavier Worthy has had sideline issues
and they
that
didn't
are
throw
his
him the
fault.
ball the rest of the game.
Yeah, after that he didn't get a single other target, which is ridiculous.
So that means the coaching staff blamed him when they shouldn't have.
Successful drives of the game came very early on when Xavier Worthy had like 4 or 5 catches during the entire drive, and then all of a sudden
50 yards and a touchdown that first. That
deep shot that
they have an identity. They went away from it in this game, and it was the best matchup they've had against this Bills team with their offensive identity. It's the most infuriating, frustrating portion of the whole damn thing because that offense was built for it.
I would say I think both of you guys are right in a sense. They definitely have an identity that they should be following, and actually how Randy kind of mentioned it too, how when you have these known struggles on your offense, like the offensive line is very poor and the timing with the receivers and everything isn't great. Like you have to adapt your offense and go to exactly what Kyle said. The identity should be running the ball, hammering the rock with Kareem 20 some times a game, and quick short timing passes where it's like it's very easy, and it almost feels like there's many times, and it seemed very prevalent, especially during this game, where they definitely, I mean, obviously they definitely forget that, and they act like they have a lot more personnel and talent than they do, and so they're pulling out these game plans back when Mahomes was throwing 300 yards a game and all these stuff, and they're trying to get back to that, but they don't have the pieces right now to be doing that kind of stuff, and that's why a lot of these things where they're having these long developing plays where, they have 2-3 options that Mahomes is looking at. And as soon as pressure is even a little bit in his face, he's bailing out because there's not a lot of trust in both the offensive line. There's not a lot of trust in the receiving core. And, it's just these things where you're playing an offense that is based off having a lot more pieces and chemistry and timing than you do now. You have to adjust to something where you're running the ball, you're sticking to the running game, and you're doing these quick orchestrated plays essentially where you have one option and then a dump off. You're having a guy, having Xavier Worthy run a quick slant or a quick out or something. That's exactly what that one drive of his did. Like, they were running normal pass plays to him, like they were just having him run normal routes really quick, only a couple step drop and connecting on him. That's what you need to do more of instead of these things where listen, the deep shot, you got to take a couple of them a game, but you also can't be doing it when it's like first and 10 and then you miss. And then, the rest of your drive is just kind of KO to that. And that's another part of it where you have to continue to pick yourself up even after a situation where that deep ball to Xavier Worthy, they missed that, and then the rest of the drive just completely stalled out. Like, it was only 2nd and 10. All you got to do is just keep going, and then they had a blown up coverage or a blown up pass protection on the next play after that, but not good, and then all of a sudden you have a very successful potential play, and your whole drive is gone because of it, and you can't dwell on that potential play that you missed. You got to keep going. You got to put it back together and get another one out there. It seems like they definitely stall after some of those big times where they should have had something or one thing went the other way or it didn't. And they're not going forward with the plan. And Kyle said it, that the plan should be you got to hammer the rock, and they did not do that this game.
Yeah, and we also have to think about this too. Is like we didn't lose to, Indianapolis. Like we lost to Buffalo. They're a good football team, and kudos to Buffalo for Kyle mentioned it earlier. They came out and they did a lot of things that they hadn't typically done all season. So they're typically more of a zone defense, not a lot of man-to-man. And right now with our wide receiver crew, they are zone deep. They beat zone defense because we don't have. I mean, you have Worthy and we have Hardman, who don't really account for him to do much. But our main options are Travis and D-Hop and Juju. None of those three dudes are really burning by anybody or beating man coverage. They are phenomenal, however, in finding soft spots in the zone. So that little wrinkle that Buffalo threw at us, I think took away a lot of our pass options out of those three main targets, which caused some issues.
So real quick, because I just, as the Twitter algorithm is, always listening, there was a tweet that somebody had sent. It was the top 10 plays of, passing touchdowns or passing plays from 2018. And I was watching the offensive line play. One, Eric Fisher, I miss you, and I'm sorry for all the mean things I said about you. Two,
honestly,
here's the thing: that offensive line.
Yeah, I remember when he was a bust too.
Yeah, those offensive lines were not the. I mean, on paper, this line is better, has more talent, has more players, has more invested in them. This goes back to something Randy said about the run game, but just in general, one of the things that's throwing this team off their rhythm is that teams are beating our tackles across their face. Meaning, when you're coaching a line, right, there are times where you're just going, like, those guys on the edge are more athletic and they're going to just beat you. You got to make them run under the table. You got to get them out and around. When they can get you back set and then just cut across to the quarterback, that is one of the, from the outside perspective, it's real simple. The fastest way from point A to point B is a straight line. And so an offensive lineman's job is to not let there be any straight lines, to the quarterback. One of the other things that I saw that, and this will be another reason why I struggle with Jawan Taylor, and I'll have to watch the left tackle spot a little bit more, but I've seen Jawan Taylor. I've noticed this multiple times now. One of the things that I saw with those tackles, they never stopped moving till the play was over. I just watched Cam Irving chase around, chase after Nick Bosa. And it wasn't necessarily that was a very productive thing, but there were times where we yell at the receivers all the time. The play's not dead till it's dead, right? It's not done till it's done. I have watched Jawan Taylor on multiple times, and he did it this last game, and it pissed me off. Stop and watch the play.
Yes. And
not to knock on one guy entirely, because I was a big, huge proponent of him. That is the investment that I think they would probably regret. And if Andy Heck isn't on top of that, isn't up. I mean, and it's hard. These are grown men, very grown men. But that is one of those things that I'm surprised is allowed to happen on a professional football field. Because I know college coaches and high school coaches who would have an aneurysm watching that. So
that even goes back to that even goes back to Jawan Taylor's his alignment issues, his early starting issues. Obviously, it was highlighted entirely because of Chris Collinsworth last year, and that kind of got Jawan flagged. But there was a legitimate question then, and now it's you gotta stop. Just line up for more forward. Just go a half second later or a half timing later than you've been going. You're still getting penalties. They are still costing us good plays and good drives, and that falls on the coaching staff. If it's 2 years of this, that falls on the coaches. That is something that the coaches, and like Tom said, it is a grown man, and he did get paid a lot of money. So it is hard sometimes to tell a grown man with millions of dollars to, hey, you got to change the way that you've been playing like that. But that's on the coach. That is on Andy Heck and the rest of the offensive coaches. And I mean, if it's not Andy Heck, someone else has to go to him and be like, hey, Andy Reid has to go to him and be like, hey, big man, I will offensive line myself. I know, like, you got to stop doing this, and so there's that, like Tom said, that's probably that's
if
probably
you're
an
gonna pull the
investment they
rookie
want
that fast,
might as
let
well.
Wanya have some snaps at right tackle.
I mean,
if it's do something.
Eventually, and especially now this year, like Juwan's tape it's going downhill. Last year his tape was at least okay enough that you would kind of justify these things. Now that his tape is not going the way it should be, like, might as well pull him if he can't figure this stuff out. If he's still doing these basic things that he's wrong, that's what I was the thing. Yeah, I mean, you can throw Wanya over there, put Kingsley in, but
no, you can't because you left him at home.
Yeah.
I think Kingsley was there for the game, though. I think he was still there. Yeah. I know. I'm just saying.
Here's what I would do in Madden.
Also, even if
it's what I would do in Madden, I would move Tooney out to the left tackle.
Yeah, or even Driscoll, like, you don't know what you don't know. So we know what Juwan Taylor does. At some point, and if he can't figure his crap out, then maybe you do just say, hey, you know what? You're going to sit Driscoll, see what you got.
Yeah, ultimately, there's still some very deep problems, and nothing is going to be 100% fixed this year, obviously, unless Mr. Andy Heck can get these guys head out their ass.
Have any of you looked at Juwan Taylor's cap hit for next year? I know I talked about this literally last week, but
it's 20 plus million.
Yeah,
he's not going anywhere. He's going to be your right tackle. So part of this conversation is completely moot. By the way, if you don't know which version of the word to use, you probably should not use it. There are some folks online, especially when you're an author.
Somebody just caught a shot.
Someone caught a shot.
I don't even know.
It's on my. You can find it on my feed.
Is it effect versus effect?
There's an author that tried to tell somebody their point was mute, M-U-T-E, not moot, M-O-O-T. Yeah, rocket science. I know for an author.
Pretty close to moat, M-O-H.
Yeah. So, the conversation about Juwan Taylor is one thing. Largely, he hasn't had an egregious amount this year. It's not been the offensive. It's not been the illegal formation, the leaving early. That hasn't been called nearly as much. Hasn't been a thing, largely because Chris Collinsworth didn't get to try to derail a whole season by being an asshat. The issues remain. They still struggle with certain specific things that should be coached. Twists, stunts, delayed blitz, pressure pickups. You've got a running back that seems to find himself on the field in passing situations that cannot identify where the blitz is coming from, no matter how many times somebody else gets blamed for it. I like the kid. He's in UDFA, and he's showing it in some instances. Maybe stop putting him in bad spots. That's a coaching problem. That's another issue. The play calling. Andy said it after the game. I should have run the ball more. Well, Andy, I don't think you're new to this, and I don't think you don't know that they're bad at run defense because everybody did. And yet, when it came down to it, even when Kareem is ripping off chunks, you didn't go back to it. You went away from it, and you did it multiple times. Your identity has been run the ball. 20-plus touches to Kareem determines games. Didn't do it. You've predicated this offense on short, intermediate, quick passes, running the football, and the occasional deep shot. Well, your quarterback and your wide receiver keep having issues on the deep ball. You can blame both. You can blame one or the other. It's been both most of the year.
It's been both. Yeah, it's been no party is.
The only one I will not put any on worthy is the one that landed 6 yards out of bounds last week.
Yeah, that one was really bad. Yeah, but that one was really bad.
Largely, it's been on both parties. You also have two future Hall of Famers, well, one for sure and one probably, playing weapons on this offense, and they didn't get the ball this game at all.
Basically zero. I mean, D-Hop got a couple targets.
They had less than 40 yards between the two of them, if I'm not mistaken.
They barely even looked Travis's way.
Now, here's the other thing I will say. They do this every year. We'll only show them a little bit of stuff now because we're going to see them later, and we really don't want to pull out toys. And of all the frustrations for both sides of the football this game, I put it in my open about how this was the most disjointed the defenses looked. I think it's largely because they were doing a lot of things they don't normally do, and they were just kind of putting stuff out there and kind of playing with things. That's all fine. You're still supposed to win the game.
You got to win the game in the end, yeah.
So I
That was
get
the offense.
I get all of the up in arms ish, and obviously I'm very irritated with largely the play calling. It's less about the players for me right now, especially when it comes to the offensive line, because they're not doing anything to help them. Whether it be not helping the actual tackles during pass protection, whether it be putting the wrong guys in spots that they shouldn't be in, whether it be not doing the things that got you there against a team that's bad at those things, whatever that may be, they're not doing it from a coaching perspective. And everybody can scream and yell about Nagy and this, but this was the conversation when Eric Bieniemy was the coordinator and they didn't do well on offense and they lost games. This was the conversation before Eric Bieniemy when it was Jesus. Oh yeah, that's right, Matt Nagy.
Oh, it was Matt Nagy again.
Oh, stunning. And before that, when it was Doug Peterson in Philly, and before that, when it was you can do this. They did this all the way back to the Philly days. All the way through. We do the same thing with the Andy Reid offenses. At the end of the day, it's his stuff. It's his job. Right. It's his deal. He will tell you that. He's told you that. Mahomes has told you that. Eric Bieniemy told you that. Matt Nagy told you. I don't know what it's going to take. Who's going to have to tell you guys that it's going to actually sink in and listen, and not you guys on the screen with me. You guys on the whole. It's not the offensive coordinator. It's Andy Reid. He runs the show on the offense. Point blank, period, end of story. There is not anything. You can talk to me about motivation and this and that. All the other guys have different coaching styles, and we go back to the part where these are grown-ass men.
Yeah, that's valid. So that's basically the story of how the offense went this past Sunday. And, we should always caveat, it does.
They missed 2 plays where they win the game.
Yeah. Well, it also, I was going to say, it doesn't help when, you throw an interception on the second play of the game and then they go down and score.
On 2nd and 1 when you didn't need to?
Yeah. And then they go down and score that drive, and then you're chasing points the entire game because.
Now, Josh Allen did you a favor and gave you a terrible one back, but.
Well, yeah, exactly. But we do talk about the Patrick Mahomes effect of teams playing Patrick Mahomes, and you feel like you need to, always be scoring and chasing points because they can at any point. And kind of the same deal with Josh Allen and the Bills. Obviously they'll give you a couple more opportunities, I think. But when you go down 7 early and you fumble your first drive like that, and you're now kind of chasing and trying to play makeup, it's just not always the best recipe. And that's part of the reason why they probably abandoned the run a little bit. They shouldn't have. I mean, obviously
7-0 is not a reason to abandon the run.
You're right. I agree. I'm just saying.
They do it all the time.
They do it all the time.
Not a reason.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. So,
and that's the head coach that needs to learn that lesson, and he knows that too, because again, he said it in the freaking press conference.
Exactly. Right. So, that was the offense for you. At the end of the day, they still scored 21 points against a pretty good Bills team, but a lot of things to work on. It's not going to be the end of the world. If there's anyone I'll bet on to figure things out, it will still be Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, despite all their shortcomings. I still bet on them to figure it out by the time the playoffs come around. Don't got any worry about that. But yeah, just a little bit of a stumble this middle of the season. And obviously, once again, typically when games go like this for the offense, we heavily rely on the defense to kind of pick us up and carry us. And this game, unfortunately, was not that. As Kyle alluded to earlier, maybe one of the worst from a play calling standpoint games that Spags has had while he's been here. It's you play Josh Allen a lot, you kind of know their MO, it seems like, and then you come out with a game plan like that. It's kind of a little questionable. It's definitely a little interesting.
They had one wide receiver, and for some reason Trent McDuffie was not on him all game.
Right.
That is something that bothered me the entire game. Like, you literally have one.
I know he's carrying an oven mitt on his hand, but legitimately one wide receiver.
Yeah, they got one legitimate wide receiver on their roster right now. Granted, I get it. All these other guys in the NFL, they can play football. They're going to shine every once in a great while.
Khalil Shakir's fine. He's not Amari freaking Cooper.
Exactly.
Curtis Samuel had some catches.
Curtis Samuel is 109 years old.
What? He still hasn't catches.
You will survive with Curtis Samuel getting a few yards. Yeah, and you know why? Because they kept missing tackles.
Right. Yeah. But I guess I've been more of a Josh Williams guy. Najee has been underwhelming to me pretty much anytime he steps on the field. Williams is bigger. He's more athletic. I think he's faster, stronger, a better tackler. I don't know what Nazi seems to offer that Josh doesn't, but you get those two big catches for perhaps. But those two big catches with Amari, like you have a bigger body corner on him, and he doesn't make those catches.
Is he in position though? Is Josh Williams in position for those plays? Because here's the thing.
He has been a lot of times. Like if you look at his stats, like he doesn't allow a lot of catches this year.
Here's the deal. If he can't figure out how to stay in bounds while running down the sideline on kick duty, how do I trust you to do your basic job on defense as a coverage guy? Because you got a penalty because you ran out of bounds on your own and didn't come back in.
Yeah.
And it's every single week with Josh. It's that. It's the 15 yards for grabbing a dude, throwing him to the ground afterwards, way out on the sideline. It's not being in your position and getting absolutely torched. It's whiffing on your jam at the line of scrimmage. It's something every single week. He's had options. Remember, Najee Johnson was not around.
Yeah, for a couple days.
For camp. No, even in camp.
Najee Johnson wasn't a thing for a while.
He was not available. It was a cornerback battle between a guy who's now got a broken foot, and we hope to God gets back before the end of the playoff run this year. And Josh Williams, and Josh Williams did nothing to take that job. Because Jalen Watson, remember, was not great at the beginning of the year. It took him a game or two to get the wheels back underneath him and knock the dust off from his shoulder surgery he had in the offseason. So all the things about Josh Williams can be said. He has not shown it consistently or much of at all in several instances. He has the tools, don't get me wrong, but the play on the field has not been there.
Yeah,
I think it's a combination with Nazi and with Josh. Both have a lot of tools, but both are pretty imperfect players. When Watson was available, we saw a lot of kind of playing matchups with Johnson and Williams. You know, if you needed a size guy, because they were on the third and fourth receivers, right? And so I think, you know, to kind of balance this out, Johnson definitely is more fluid and can keep up with those smaller guys. I understand why he's seeing more snaps against a team like Buffalo, who's got Curtis Samuel, who's got, you know, Shakir, and even Amari Cooper, who, you know, again, he's old, but still a solid player. So I get that, and I get, you know, I will also agree with Kyle. Josh has had some mental lapses, and just some struggles there. Both these guys are young players, but at the same time, they've been around. Makes you really appreciate what Jalen Watson is to this team, and how good I think that was.
Very underrated. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's such a tough spot to be in. But they deserve the criticism. Say, hey, you guys, it's got to be next man up. And a lot of other positions have had to do that, and they've kind of, maybe it's because they've got two guys that they're looking at as like the next man up, but it's a much harder task to do matchups with your number two corner is with your, you know, your third or fourth, because sometimes you don't even have all those guys out there.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty telling when Jalen Watson goes down and Najee and Christian Roland Wallace are both being put out there before Josh Williams, that and that was the big thing. You know, the Chiefs really gambled with their cornerback depth this offseason, obviously trading away L'Jarius Sneed and going with some of those guys that they had drafted. And, they were hoping for one of the three basically to develop and break out. And we got Jalen Watson to do that. And, then Najee was kind of the next man up. And then it seemed like Josh Williams did kind of fall to that, like I said, cornerback 4 position. And, in the limited matchups, yeah, he was ideal. And, it's when you have more of a game load though. And we saw him when Najee missed a couple weeks, the past few weeks, he was when Najee was out, and, he was okay. He was up and down. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was bad, but it definitely was telling that, how the coaches felt about him and his play, and how, we've seen the mental lapses and the penalties and whatnot. It's just not ideal. You're not running with an ideal situation here where you're like I said, banking on cornerback 3 and 4 to be 2 and 3 and match up with some of these guys that are they're outgunning. Like Amari Cooper outguns Najee Johnson. Like he does. Like he's just a bigger receiver. He's the better player. And you put Najee out there because you're banking on him to, like Kyle alluded to, be more in position and have the mental part of it better. But, you're still just not working with the ideal set. Something's got to give in one of those situations. And to Josh Allen's credit, he was throwing some very beautiful balls. Like some of those catches to Amari, they were just, Najee had decent coverage on him. It's just
the first one specifically is just a drop in a bucket. Like he's there.
It's like just really good throws from Josh.
But he's there.
Really good throws from a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Josh Allen. Like it's okay to say that he had some really good plays and did some really good throws. So, it's going to be a thing that we're just going to keep on. Also, you have to kind of remember that it's like these guys didn't really get a lot of play early on in the season. It was McDuffie and Jalen Watson, so they were mostly on punt team. So now you're kind of catching up to the rest of the time where, like Tom alluded to, Jalen wasn't perfect when he first started, and now he kind of worked his way through. So now these guys are getting more live game reps, and I think the coaching staff is figuring out the better matchups for them now and better ways to use them. I think there's a chance that they turn this around and start going in the right direction, especially in the cornerback room. But yeah, it's just they did get a little exposed in facing a good Bills team, a good quarterback in Josh Allen, even though it might not have been the most star-studded receiving core that they were going up against. But is what it is. That's a big part of it. Also, another big part of just the defense's struggles in general were the pass rush, and Josh Allen having.
I was just going to allude to that. I was like, one way to help those guys out is to get a better pass rush. Which, other than Chris Jones, like our pass rush was almost non-existent, and I was really expecting, going after their backup tackle Spencer Brown. Like that dude held his own. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have a whole lot of answers to get around those guys, which really, really surprised me because I figured that was one area that we'd be able to cause some chaos and have a little bit of success. I pegged us for 4 sacks, in our little chat on the live. Like did we get one? I don't even know if we got one.
We didn't. Nope.
I don't know if we got
one. We did not register an official sack.
Personnel choices. I don't know how many times we're going to talk about this tonight, but I have a feeling it's a lot. This is the second time now. Can someone explain to me why why Josh Uche has 5 snaps?
Yeah, that's what I was going to allude to. That is very confusing. That is very confusing.
You brought him in for a third down pass rusher. You have a backup tackle. You have a guy who is fast and eludes people. And you have Uche who specializes in that.
And who's very familiar.
He had 5 snaps. He's been playing him twice a year, as Tom is alluding to, for 4 years. He got 5 snaps. I know you guys want to hold stuff for the playoffs. I get all that. What are we doing with the personnel? Not spying, not having the right linebackers on the field, not having the right pass rushers on the field. Yes, Charles Omenihu will make a difference. He's also not going to be elite when he comes back. He's coming off.
Him here to say that.
I understand. Maybe he surprises everyone, including every doctor on the planet. But coming back off that injury, we've seen it take time every single time nearly, unless your name is Adrian freaking Peterson, okay? It takes a little bit to get your feet underneath you, to get the game speed back, to get up to speed. They've got to figure out these personnel groupings, and I know it's a lot of different and newer moving pieces, and Spags has only had him for a little bit. But how does he have 5 snaps when he has that much familiarity with that team, especially with the backup tackle? That can't happen. Can't. I like Mike Dana. I like George Karlaftis. You're probably leaving George on the field. It's probably Mike Dana that gets the sub out.
Yep. Yeah.
I understand you paid him a bunch of money in the offseason. I don't care.
Yeah. George didn't show up in this game at all to me. I mean, the dude has an unbelievable motor, but the one thing that
sophomore slumping a little, and I'm not terribly surprised.
One thing I always kind of bagged on him. I love his motor, I love his effort, but it's the finish. Like he has a hard time finishing. He gets in and around the quarterback. He has a hard time bringing him down and actually causing legitimate chaos or like finishing the actual play. He's that puppy chasing cars. Like he's not. He'll give it hell, but he's not quite sure what to do when you get there.
Yeah, and Josh Allen is a very hard quarterback to take down. Josh Allen's very hard to take down. That is a thing. He's very
absolutely
quick to run. He's definitely.
We have the guys and we have the rotation and we have the tools to put some pressure and to cause some chaos. And there just wasn't, other than Chris Jones getting some penetration and not being able to bring Josh down, like there wasn't a whole lot of anything else from anybody.
We're also not going to talk much about the penalties, but for the Buffalo Bills to have 0 holding calls on the offensive line when Chris Jones needed a new jersey at halftime because they almost tore it off his fucking body, pardon my language, is absolute batshit crazy.
Yeah, no, outside of Chris Jones.
No, there was no holding. We get all the calls.
We all, exactly.
We do. We get all the calls.
You can't see. There's nothing. Yeah.
Verbatim, I tweeted it. They called the holding on Wanye that they called. The next drive, the same play goes the other way, and the flag stayed in the pocket, and the hold was worse. You can talk to me about officials and the rigging and all the stuff all you want. Overall, they just suck ass.
Yeah, not entirely wrong. Not entirely wrong there. But yeah, the pass rush obviously just not there at the moment. Like Tom had kind of alluded to earlier, it's just tired. Obviously a very winded bunch that have been playing a lot, and you try to bring in some new blood like Josh Usay, and you don't use them, so that's very interesting. But you still need more production out of your guys that you've got out there. Chris is great, and Chris is still going to be great. The Bills' right tackle, Tom, you were a big fan of him. What was his name again?
Mr. Brown.
Northern Iowa.
Yeah, that's a matchup that you should have abused a lot more, I think. And once again, they seem to fall short on these game plans where it's like you have these matchups that you should be, better utilizing, and it just does not seem like they're doing so, and they're kind of it was a weird game from Spags. He definitely Josh Allen's a good quarterback, a smart quarterback. You don't usually get home very often on blitzes on him. He's similar to Pat in that way, where if you blitz him, it's probably not the best of ideas, but at a certain point, you got to try to get pressure on him somehow because your front four aren't going to get pressure on him. So you got to send the blitzes, hope that the back end, recovers and stays put. Unfortunately, they just didn't that game, and it is what it is. It's not going to change Spags. I'll tell you what, he ain't going to change, and he's going to keep on sending the house. But this game particularly, the blitzes just didn't seem to be getting home, and when that's your only real opportunity of generating pressure, it becomes pretty predictable. It does come pretty predictable. So, I don't know. It's not great.
To talk about the absolute biggest problem that we watched in this game from the defense.
You're right, Kyle. You should get
effort level.
Effort, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of missed tackles, a lot of bad angles.
What is tackling mostly, Tom?
Angles and effort.
Effort and attitude.
Thank you.
I realized it's like he said the word earlier.
Well, I mean, it is. It's effort, attitude, and taking a correct angle. What did they struggle with mightily throughout the entire game?
Most of that, yeah.
I saw a lot of guys out of position, but yes.
There's a window in the middle where they tackled well, and on the edge anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The run game was largely inefficient. Again, they did another nice job in that area. That was fine. The only running that they really got was, again, the quarterback, as we've seen over and over again when it comes to this with mobile quarterbacks. Whether it be the guys like Lamar who are fast, twitchy, and hard to keep a hold of, or guys like Josh who are big. And now, I realize I just listed 2 aliens when I'm referring to running quarterbacks. I get that. That's been a thing that they've struggled with. Most teams struggle with it. It's because at that point, it's truly 11 on 11, and it's tough. You're usually going to end up one-on-one with a guy that's a freak athlete. It's a problem. The tackling on the edge of Curtis Samuel, of
Khalil Shakur,
Khalil Shakur, which is fine. Of tight ends I can't name because I don't even know who they are.
Dawson Knox. There's
Knox
Zach
was there,
Davidson.
but who?
Zach Davidson.
Yeah, sure. I believe
That's
that's not
his first catch and first snaps of his career last night.
That's definitely not an NPC Madden generated player name.
Right.
Totally not. And then the most glaring effort issue of the entire evening came on the game-sealing play from the quarterback of the other team when your linebacker, who is supposedly once top of the market contract money, mailed it in. I was nice when a certain radio host in Kansas City tried to, well, he wasn't the only guy on the field. Yeah, that's fine. He's the only one that did a dolphin dive flop trick while trying to pretend like he was tackling him, though.
Yeah.
That was not Nick Bolton's best effort, by far.
That happened multiple times throughout the game, effort-wise. He was
Yes.
late places. He was behind. He was not. And by the way, we just talked about them having their worst job communicating things throughout the entire defense of the whole season. And whose job is that? Who's paid for that? Who's the guy for that? Nick Bolton.
Two guys on the defense that continually showed up on the wrong side of things for me during that game was Bolton and Cook.
I was going to say Cook was the other one that
Cook's
very
ability to wrap his arms when he tries to tackle somebody is beyond infuriating. How many times do we have to watch Cook bounce off a guy because he thinks he's the next coming of Bernard Bone Crusher Pollard and thinks that a shoulder tackle is going to actually take care of somebody? He ain't that
hard.
Dude.
He doesn't hit that hard.
That dude.
Pollard was a dog.
Bring your arms. You have them attached to your body. Use them when you attempt to tackle somebody. You're going to have better results. Same thing goes for Bolton. They dive at legs. They throw their shoulder into things. They don't finish tackles this season.
How hard is it to hit when you can't see what you're hitting? Anybody tried that?
It's hard.
Pretty
when
difficult.
You're the ground. When your face mask is pointing to the ground, it's hard to see what you're hitting.
Yeah. When I get into a fist fight with somebody, I prefer to do it with my eyes closed.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing on the planet is to just look at my feet while I'm getting punched in the forehead. It really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How do you think I lost all the hair?
So
actually, Tom, the light might deflect onto their eyes off his head.
Exactly. It's like a laser beam.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna pull a country here from Kingdom Cast.
Okay.
PSA. These are my thoughts and my thoughts alone. If you pay Nick Bolton this year, after this season, anything more than single-digit $1 million per year, you are actively asking this defense to regress, and I don't know how much more I can take of it. Because he is not worth anywhere close to Fred Warner or any of the other elite middle linebackers in this league. I don't care how nicely he lines everybody up and sets them in their nice spots. Obviously, we're struggling with that.
Yeah.
And we're also not tackling. We also can't cover. We're also bouncing off things and not making plays. And you can scream and yell at me about how great he played in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Whoa.
See, like this, and that's one thing I was just going to mention is like if we would have had this conversation 2 years ago, the way he came in as a rookie and progressed his second year, like his trajectory was going on the right path as one of the.
It hasn't the last 2 years.
He kind of plateaued there, and now he's a little bit.
It's almost like he was a limited player coming out, and the limitations have been reached, and now he's at his ceiling, and he's not going over it, and now we're starting to actually see him go back kind of the other way.
It's really kind of hard to watch. Like he's always around the football, but it's that finish aspect of things that's really just starting to get on my nerves with a lot of our players, whether it's coming from offensive linemen finishing blocks and blocking to a whistle, giving your full effort, or defensive backs, linebackers, guys that get paid to tackle people, not knowing how or bringing the actual fundamentals and technique to actually tackle people.
He's also the center of your zone defense and has no earthly idea what he is doing in zone coverage. You can't watch him cover zone coverages and tell me he understands a bit of what they are supposed to be.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there was one play I think Jaden Hicks had come down and got a big tackle on like a little swing route to a running back or something, but on the play you can see Nick Bolton, like that's the only person in the area that Nick could have possibly been covering, and he just like kind of hesitates, stutters around, and then Jaden Hicks comes down from the box. It was either Hicks or it was another safety, but it might have been Chamari. But he comes down and makes the tackle.
And I know exactly what call. It's James Cook on the edge on the swing pass where Chamari defeats the block and trips him up, and Bolton cleans it up, and Bolton gets credit for the tackle.
Yeah, and Nick Bolton just kind of looks at like he's just watching him. Yeah, it's like
Shamari had trouble at points tackling
Shamari didn't have a
yesterday
great
too.
game.
He also went back and adjusted his effort level and his eyes and tackled a lot better in the second and third pieces of that game. Nick Bolton stands and passes guys off through his zone that he should absolutely not be passing off. What was it, 2 weeks ago with the Broncos?
Yeah.
In the end zone?
Was that the Broncos or the Falcons? Or
the problem, here's my issue. We're having trouble keeping track of which freaking game it was.
I remember which game it was where he taps, what was it, George on the butt to like try to move him, and then he
just
watches the guy run by
the Broncos touchdown. He walked right in the end zone and just stood there, and Nick Bolton was like, "Oh, is that me?"
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I was too busy.
He did it on
George to move it.
He did the same thing on a third down in this game with and like I've only gotten to watch the broadcast angle because I couldn't bring myself to watch the all 22 today after what I saw on the broadcast angle. 4 or 5 times in this game alone, he's in zone coverage, and I don't know who he's covering, but it isn't whoever he's supposed to be. There's one of them. He is standing. You can see him on the broadcast angle. He stands. He looks at him. He's like, "Oh, that guy's open," and he hesitates, like, "Oh, I should go that way," and then just stands there. And then Josh drops it off right to him, and they get 6 yards out of it. And now it's 4th and 2 instead of 4th and 8.
Yeah. He's a very, very big liability in pass coverage.
And Garrett mentioned it when you're playing Patrick Mahomes. 4th and 2 is go for it territory if you're not inside your own 40. And what did they do?
They went for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the thing. I think even just, we're definitely seeing the risk and reward. He's an incredible liability in pass coverage, and I don't even know if that's worth what he provides in the run game anymore. Like Kyle said, you don't want to see him paying double digits. I don't even know if you want to pay him in general, because then you're stuck with him in this role instead of potentially upgrading to someone better.
If you don't pay him double digits, you move him out of the middle linebacker spot, and you only use him on rundowns as the other outside linebacker as the come downhill thumper. That's it. He cannot be your middle linebacker anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, we'll see if Spags ever changes.
Not every down. Not every down. He cannot be on the field every down.
So yeah, that's. Anyone else have any gripes about the defense? Who else kind of sucked? I don't know. Who else was not good at the defensive level?
We hammered on some safeties. We hammered on the backers.
Do we want to talk about any of the positives? I know we've been murdering both sides of the football. Do we want to talk about any of the positives?
Some positives.
Hey, new kicker came in clutch. Boom, 3 extra points.
Schrader, yep.
There was some shaky reports of his pregame warm up being about 50% and banging him off the uprights, but. Hey, the 3 opportunities he got to kick extra points were money.
He was hitting fans in the freaking stands.
Over the net. Hey, and his kickoffs were through the back of the end zone or to the back of the end zone. So,
they were.
Other than the one that Tobe asked him to keep short, which they returned and didn't get a deep return on. So at least that worked out too.
New kid came in and did his job. So I was happy with that. Punt God showed up. Punt God had a great.
We got to talk about that. Did anybody else notice that he thought he was a safety?
I did see that. Yeah.
I know they made him mad when they cut him without believing him when all of the other stuff, which you can go Google Matariza. You don't need me to tell you about what happened. There's a whole bunch of information available. You can just go pull it up. I'm not here to talk about that. The Bills let him go during that whole situation. And it sure looked like that stuck in his craw a little bit.
Yeah, he was. Usually you see punters, they'll kind of, hesitate, and they'll kind of be like the last line.
He was ready.
He was.
Dude, he was flying down the field. He threw his whole body
he was trying to make
a better tackle attempt than Nick Bolton had on the touchdown run.
Yeah, no.
That was one of the question marks, especially from Garrett coming into the season, going from Tommy to Ariza. And what's he sitting? He's sitting at about a 50-yard average on the season.
You know what else hasn't had an issue?
He's
doing his job.
What else wasn't an issue?
The holding.
That
was the more important thing, and I'm glad that wasn't. I'm glad to be wrong on that aspect, because I'm glad that he has become a good holder. I'm glad that's been a good. He's been okay as a punter. I don't think he's been anything crazy, but he's been good.
He hit some absolute missiles off of his foot when he was.
If your average starts with 5,
It's a good day.
They're doing pretty good.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, the special teams was pretty good ultimately. It's we got to highlight. Let's see, Noah Gray.
Peyton Hendershot played nice. Noah Gray balled out.
Yeah, I'm about to say Noah Gray had 2 touchdowns. We got to highlight him. First 2 touchdown day of his career, I believe. So shout out
his
Noah.
first 2 of the season, right?
First 2 of the year.
I think so.
His first.
Hadn't not scored a touchdown this year yet.
No, he hadn't.
No, I don't think so. I don't think he had any this year before
I'm pretty sure that they were his first 2 of the year.
He had, and it wasn't like, oh, he's
Right.
killing them in yardage. He had 4 catches for 23 yards, but there were 2 third down conversions and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned Peyton Hendershot. He had 1 catch for 11 yards, but the more impressive part was that he was getting pretty chippy with those boys. Hendershot,
he's a fiery dude, man.
He's about it. You need a couple guys like that. Kyle knows exactly what type of guys those are from hockey.
He was trying to fight Roquan Smith in shorts while Roquan was wearing a helmet.
You need a guy or 2 like that on your team that'll just duke it out with anyone. I think that's good. I think that's a good glue guy right there.
You need a few of those guys.
Also, that ball that Mahomes threw, the broadcast was like, that's one of those where you're like, you can't make that throw. And it's like, yeah, that's cute. That's him. He makes that throw. And Peyton Hendershot went and took that football out of the air, made that catch, got it down to the goal line. And that's right before Noah scored a touchdown. That was one of Noah's touchdown catches right after. So there were plenty of positives. I know we just spent an hour being very irritated and frustrated and angry. It's a very good football team they just played, regardless of how everyone feels about what their roster technically is supposed to look like. I remember a team that was supposed to have a very poor roster compared to the previous year's roster constructions and then won a Super Bowl. Oh, that was us last year. I forgot.
Oh, nice. That was us. Yeah. We've been here before almost.
I don't want to sit here. Kareem Hunt, when he was allowed to touch the ball, had a good day.
Pretty good, yeah. He actually did pretty good. Yeah.
Peyton Hendershot was good. Chris Jones was Chris Jones, like Chris Jones always is. They had Trent McDuffie back to normal form. I mean, that they ran the same play with Amari that they ran against Nazi, they ran against Trent, incomplete versus complete. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, I probably should have been playing the whole game. Just put him on him.
And there goes back to what I thought they would do versus what they did. It's so...
there's going to be some lessons to learn from this game, and I think they're going to learn them. I
hope they approach this like Christmas last year.
Yeah, this is.
It's not nearly as frustrating because it's not the Raiders against Aiden O'Connell, but
it's not as embarrassing. Yeah, like I said, I was very glad I'd rather lose this game than losing versus the Broncos last week. I'll tell you what, because that would have been. I feel like if you would have had to ask me win one of the 2 of these last 2 weeks, I would have said Broncos and then lose the Bills 100%. So.
Side note: the Broncos loss, if there would have been one, doesn't look as bad, especially after what they did to the Falcons this week, which was 38-6.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah, they did have a good offensive performance, but still, it's the Broncos.
I know.
I feel bad for Carolina this week. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I hope you're right.
On to Carolina as
we're gonna bring some optimism.
Last person also.
You lose a game like this to the Bills, and then you get your get right game. I don't know if there's really a better team on the schedule or in the NFL that could be on your schedule.
Yeah,
and the Carolina Panthers.
You would hope for that. You would hope that that's the case. We'll get more into that on the Friday Night Live. Before we get out of here, want to highlight, of course, one more person in this game that we forgot to mention. That how could we forget this guy with 2 O-line guys on the pod right now? Mike Caliendo caught a pass, guys.
And I didn't think it was Mike Caliendo when he caught it.
Yeah, that's some of that tricky Andy Reid stuff that you just not quite sure what you're going to get from.
So now Mike Caliendo and I believe Wanya Morris have more catches on the season than Sky Moore. So cool.
You and the other 1,700 people that thought that tweet was funny and original.
I didn't think that tweet was actually funny. I just felt like mentioning it because it was funny. I might have thought it was funny, I guess, but context is key. I know.
If anyone remembers my love for Sky Moore,
Yeah, just a barrel.
We all love Sky Moore. I chose Sky Moore in mock draft warfare. That got me a win that year.
Sure did.
But we all have our misses, right?
You can hang your hats on. That's probably the only win Sky Moore is ever going to give you for anything.
Yeah, hopefully Kingsley follows not a similar path to Tom. So
I'll in mind show with this.
Okay.
They're going to lose a game. Saying that they needed to lose a game is asinine, but they're going to lose a game. So, if you're going to lose, it's probably best that it's a Super Bowl contending, AFC Championship contending team on the road, in their barn,
Mhm.
in a hostile environment where you didn't play your best football. They did
And they're
not
down a lot of guys to
remotely,
injury.
and they're
Yeah.
down a ton of guys to injury. And we talked about it. Both teams had injuries.
Right. Both these teams look different when they see each other again.
This was some what the hell moments from most of your top players and coaches. And now they get to go back into that practice facility, back into that room, and go, hey, especially because remember, this is a very young team right now with all the injuries. There's a lot of young guys playing positions and in roles that they weren't necessarily supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And you can make your pick on who I'm talking about. There's
a lot
a
of
lot
depth
of
chart
them.
shuffling. Yeah.
They don't really know what losing is like in the NFL in some of these instances.
Yeah, well, the rookies don't.
They've not done a whole lot of it. Even the second-year guys.
Yeah.
Hell, most of the third-year guys at this point
third-year
haven't
guys.
done a lot of
you
it.
went back-to-back Super Bowls. Yeah.
It's sometimes nice to be reminded that that's not very much fun, and it doesn't feel very good when you don't come out on the top side on Sundays, when you put all the extra effort and the work and the time. Because what I don't want people to take away from this is we're telling or saying, A, that they're not putting in the effort, that they're not spending time, that they're not trying to get better. That's not what we're saying. I'm also not telling you that I know more than any of the coaches on that coaching staff, other than maybe the wide receiver coach, but we'll leave that alone. What we're saying is there's things that have to get better, that have to change, that have to improve. And that's from the, 53 and what is there, 16 practice squads? That's from 69 guys on the roster to the first guy on the roster. Things have got to get better if they want to cause an actual history shakeup and hit this three-peat. They're a good football team. They have not played like it most of the season. It's time to get back in the lab, fix some of the issues, fix some of the stuff that, well, they're problems, but they're not really too bad because we keep winning. Fix it.
You got the L. You got to do. You learn twice as much from losing as you do from winning, and we'll see. Historically, they've responded well to this stuff. I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but probably worth it because I got distracted watching. The Chiefs signed former second-round pick Tyquan Thornton today from the Patriots. Probably going to save the season.
Brett Beach move all day long.
Yep.
All day
probably
long.
going to save the
people
season.
People are like, why? Jesus.
Probably.
Future 1,000-yard receiver, Hall of Famer.
Hype.
I'm kidding.
Hype.
But this is a chance to get right. The Panthers are about as rough as a team as, I would love to see them come out with a big one, but we'll get more into that on our Friday show.
They're a bottom 5 team, period.
You're right. Randy, any closing thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked a ton about, we started 9-0. We haven't played great. We went through a myriad of good football teams to begin with, and one not playing our best ball. And not playing your best ball is going to catch up with you at some point. It caught up with us against a good Buffalo team. And to act like, the sky is falling and everything is doom and gloom when you listen to or you read a lot of guys on Twitter and read a lot of these things, you're like, pump the brakes. That's one loss to a team that we'll probably see again in the AFC Championship or the playoffs potentially. But you sit there and you look at our record. We're 9-1. We look at the remaining 7 games on the schedule. We have 3 really easy or really, really winnable games with the Panthers and the Raiders and the Browns. And we got 4 more. We got 4 more that are going to test us with the Chargers, the Texans, the Broncos again, and the Steelers. So we can't sleepwalk through the rest of this schedule and pretend that everything is honky-dory and we're just going to, continue doing what we're doing. Like, some things have to change and we're going to have to play better because we are going to have some tests coming down the pipe to make sure that we get that number 1 seed and the bye and home field advantage and everything runs through Arrowhead again. So some things have to change. Some things have to get fixed. Some guys are going to come back from injury, which is going to be great. It's going to be nice to have some of those dudes back. Getting to see Amenahu, back on the field.
He's hungry for it.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, but there's still a lot of time to play on our schedule. The season is not over. We're still a good football team. We have a lot of great players, but yeah, some things have to get fixed and some things have to change. But I have not lost faith just because we lost one game. And really, like you saying, saying we needed to win or lose a game is asinine. Absolutely. But I am kind of a little bit thankful that now you don't have all that the extra pressure of the perfect season hanging over us. One less stupid thing to think about. Like I said before, let Miami, pop their champagne and they can hold on to their undefeated season bullshit again. Yeah. But we're going to get back on track. Things will get better.
Yeah.
Sorry in advance, Carolina, for what you're going to get next week. So.
Yeah. My final thought before we get out of here, I believe all these men are very correct in saying that the Chiefs are still a very good football team. I don't think that should be any surprise. And I said it once and I'll say it again. You can count out the Chiefs and you can bet against the Chiefs. I'm not going to. I'll tell you what. If there's anyone else I'd rather have right now in this situation, it's Big Red and it's Patrick Mahomes and the guys. So, it's one of those things. We see this happen. Losses happen. It doesn't worry me, even the slightest long term. But can't like Randy said, can't sleepwalk through these next ones. You definitely have to step up your game and really fix those little things and get things rolling again. Because you got to be prepared for the playoffs. That's obviously what you always shoot for. And the path to the number 1 seed has become a little bit harder now with the loss to Buffalo. We still have pretty much control of it. If we have a lot of control over the 1 seed still, it's just not as automatic as it would have been if we would have beaten Buffalo. I believe it dropped from like 90% to like 54%. So is what it is. That's still the goal to work for, to get that extra bye week and have a little more time to recover, because God knows we're going to need that. We need another bye week with that early one we had already. That is going to be tough. So got more good football ahead of us. We just got to weather the storm a little bit, if you will, which I guess you all are literally doing because it's raining outside probably. So, so with that, thank you all so much for tuning in on this one. Be sure to check us out at Kingdom Says Pod, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe and like over there, as well as Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts from. We will be back Friday night, 8 p.m. Arrowhead time, unless otherwise advertised. But we will let you know on Facebook and Twitter and all the social medias when and where to find us on that.
We'll also be announcing the winner of the giveaway from last weekend on Friday.
Yes,
correct.
Yes.
Remember, Friday nights, pants are optional.
Exactly. Tom is.
I will be watching from sunny Hawaii.
That must be nice. Yeah, that must
without
be nice.
pants.
No one likes you.
Without
pants, I bet. Yeah, he probably does not have pants. So, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you guys on the next episode of the Kingdom Set.